terrific. I just recorded this one time already, and I guess it didn't stream correctly. So I guess this is try number two. Usually, this is a vlog that I try to do at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday. But given that it took me about 45 minutes of the first time, not knowing it didn't post, I guess I'm going to start again. So we're going to discuss a few different topics today. We're going to discuss, boy, if I can go back to the actual settings, that'd be great, but it's not going to let me. All right. Anyways, we're going to discuss employees finally getting some leverage over employers. Synology NAS. Synology NAS is now, there's a risk out there for them. A venture capitalist got their breach taken, and a wide range of cybersecurity attacks is now, you can get malware as a service. So I just wanted to bring these things up. I guess we're going to record it again. Let me hop over to, there it is, and let's get going. So starting off, right off the start, we have this article from securityaffairs.co. As always, I will list the links in the URL at the bottom of the YouTube video. So if you're on a phone, you can get it that way. If you're looking at a computer, you can get it that way. However, if you're on Android TV, because I watch most of my YouTube content on Android TV, you're just going to have to look on your phone. Again, this is a live stream. You can comment. I am looking at comments as they come in here. But regardless, let's just go over it. I am going to try to keep this down on size a little bit. Last week, I think, was an hour and 7 minutes. The week before that was coming up on 55. So I'm trying to find this method. Let me know what you think of these, what you don't think of these, what you like, what you don't like, and maybe what, would you prefer I start slicing each one of these articles up and making individual videos out of them, or do you think it's just beneficial to keep it as a 1 hour-ish once a week webinar? So I'm with C14G. I own and operate it. We are a cybersecurity solutions provider. So for small and medium business, so that ranges from firewalls, remote work, SNS, SNMP monitoring, alerting, and a wide range of VPN concentrators, a wide range of cybersecurity solutions to help protect your company from threats on the inside and threats on the outside. Let's go ahead and get started. Stealth Worker botnet targets Synology NAS devices to drop ransomware. The reason I wanted to talk about this is since we're aimed at the small, medium business, aka non-enterprise, a lot of our customers either already own a Synology or they like the features and prices of the Synology, because the nice thing about a Synology is they offer a lot of nice features. You can hook them up to a Google Drive account and back them up automatically. You can hook them to an AWS. You can use Docker from them. There's a lot of features that make a Synology NAS interesting to the smaller non-enterprise level companies. So the enterprise level companies have a tendency to go with the SAN solutions that are a little bit bigger. Dell EMC, their solutions. There's a lot of different storage solutions out there. So, but for the money, Synology is a terrific product. My recommendation, if you're in the market to buy Synology, is you go for the Western Digital black drives if possible, if it's rotational. I don't trust Seagate. I've been doing this a long time. Seagate drives, they have more failure rates than Western Digital by far. So that being said, you should be using a redundant array of disks, RAID, and you should be backing them up offsite, which Synology offers to replicate/clone automatically. So if you have a Synology unit on your premises, you can put one at a backup location or a disaster recovery site, and as long as you have the bandwidth, it will replicate all the changes automatically without you having to worry about it. And you can do reporting and SNMP monitoring. Well, not monitoring, but you can report to an SNMP monitor to send traps or whatever the case may be. So, Taiwan vendor Synology has warned customers that the Stealth Worker botnet is conducting brute force attacks into an attempt to implant ransomware. The reason why brute force attacks work is because the CPU, or there might be a memory bandwidth, whatever bandwidth that you have is overloaded. So there's going to be an opportunity to sneak in through a bad process, whatever the case may be, right? If the CPU can't keep up with everything, one might get through. If the network might not be able to keep up with everything, it typically bounces it. But if you can brute force your way in, it is a effective attack vector. So once compromised, the device once compromised, I think I meant to say on the device, threat actors employed it in a botnet used in attacks and aimed at Linux systems, including Synology NAS. Yes. So a lot of these devices that there's no OS on almost every device inside your network, whether it's a SAN or a NAS or even a firewall. Those all have OSs, right? So Linux is the main. It's their only OS for Synology. It is a flavor specific to them, so you might not be able to run, say, a Red Hat command or a Debian command like apt-get or whatever the case may be. But it's still a very powerful tool. It's a great product. But anyways, I wanted to point that out. So what do I recommend if you do have a Synology? I recommend one, most of the time they're not Active Directory integrated for usernames and password authentication. If possible, set it up with Radius. It should be connecting to something with Radius. You might want to limit SSH access to only 1 or 2 people, period, at most, and only from the inside of the network from specific machines. You don't want to allow it from any machine that's connected to the VPN. While that is better than just any machine on the internet, try to lock it down as most as possible, because a Synology NAS has so much. Your company has a tendency to rely so much on shared storage or network attached storage was what NAS stands for. Network attached storage. So, for instance, if your main share of the company is on your Synology NAS, if you lose that for 3 weeks, what's that going to do for your business, right? So, and then this is just their official release. The Product Security Incident Reporting Response Team has recently seen and received reports on an increase in brute force attacks against Synology devices. Synology security researchers believe that the botnet is primarily driven by a malware family called Stealthworker. At present, Synology Product Security Incident Response Team has seen no indication of the malware exploiting any software vulnerabilities. Well, then how are they getting in? We don't really know. These attack leverages. Let's try that again. These attacks leverage a number of already infected devices to try and guess common administrative credentials, right? And if successful, will access the system to install its malicious payload, which may include the ransomware. Again, if you aren't using Radius, or if your Radius credentials are so easy, change it. They should be randomized per device. You should be using a password manager, so nobody can say, well, it's not convenient. I can't remember a randomized hash password. That's the point of password. That's why we have password managers. So all those devices that, if you're not using Radius at least, have a randomly very difficult 15-character long password to prevent brute forcing and guessing the password altogether. The vendor reports its findings with the relevant certs, with relevant certs, and is working with them to dismantle the command and control infrastructure behind the malware. Synology is also notifying affected customers. The Taiwanese company urges its customers to enable multi-factor authentication where available, enable auto block, which means if an account is tried to be logged into too many times, the account gets blocked for X amount of minutes, and account protections, right? And to use they meant to use strong administrative credentials, right? Don't use string. I don't know what string are. System administrators that have been notified suspicious activity have noticed suspicious activity on their devices should report it to the Synology technical support. That brings up a good point. How are you monitoring to see abnormal behavior in your environment, not just on Synology, but your environment in general, right? So if you're doing reporting, if you're using PRTG, SolarWinds, we're in the process of making our own SNMP monitoring tool, but that's a couple of years down the road. what are you doing to realize if something changes? For instance, if you have a group of servers or one server that always transfers in a week 50 megabytes or 50 gigabytes, and all of a sudden in a week it goes to 100 gigabytes. I did it twice. How do you know, right? Is that generating an alert? Are you sending reports? Do these reports get looked at thoroughly, or are they just something to put in the bin in case you need it should you have an incident? That being said, that could be done not just for gigabytes, that could be done for CPU usage, that could be done for memory access, that could be done for disk I/O. You want to use the averages of your company, and when things spike outside that average, report or alert accordingly. And if they're false negatives or false positives, I should say, sorry, after that, adjust the alerting so it's more accurate to a situation like this. If you're using a brute force attack, you're going to see, if they're using a brute force attack, you're going to see CPU usage higher than normal. You're going to see bandwidth usage higher than normal on a Synology device. So put the right tools in place so you can know what you're doing. That being said, you can't ask an Active Directory guy or a Windows Server Administrator, I should say, to understand what's going on with the Synology NAS. You should have a Linux operator or a storage administrator take a look at that device for you, not somebody that's working on Windows servers, because Windows servers, people have a tendency to just be in that realm. Storage operators have a tendency to just be in that realm, and network security people have a tendency to be in that realm. It is going to take probably, if you have the staff, it's going to take some cross department communication to figure out what you can do to see, would you know right now if somebody was inside your device? If not, we can reach, and you want to be able to get to that point, you can find us on c14g.com. We would love to get you there. We'd love to try to get it so that everything is proactive for you instead of reactive. Ultimately, we don't want you to be down. We don't want you to be in a scenario where you have to worry about losing payroll or not being able to pay payroll because you ran into an incident that could have been prevented, right? So moving on to the next article, and again, these are listed on the YouTube video at the bottom of the description. This is an American venture capital. The American venture capital firm Advanced Technology Ventures, that's ATV, disclosed a ransomware attack. Crooks also stole data of some private investors. So the thing that I'm going to point out here, because I have a tendency to read these articles and find the gray type of wording, is most of the time that there's an article out there, they've been in the system for months, if not weeks. They don't really know what was taken, and they only think they know what was taken based on what's put up for ransom. Example, we got into your finance database. We're going to release what the CEOs make publicly, or we're going to do a company email blast to let everyone know what everyone's making inside the company, unless you do XYZ and pay our ransom, right? That's typically what that is. But that doesn't mean that other data wasn't stolen or other data wasn't compromised, or that there's no legal responsibility for ATV, Advanced Technology Ventures, to do more to protect their customers, right? So ATV reported that the security breach took place in July. The ransomware operator stole financial information stored on 2 servers before encrypting them. And here's the official statement. On July 9th, 2021, the company learned from its third-party information technology provider, that could be somebody like me or like us, that there had been anomalous activity on 2 identical ATV servers on which the company stored financial reporting information. The company soon determined that the servers have been encrypted by a ransomware attack. On July 26, 2001, the company learned that there's been evidence of both unauthorized access and exfiltration of the content on the servers. Reads a data breach notification letter sent to the affected Maine residents, right? Okay. So it looks like they at least had the tools in place to know what was taken. That's why that window is pretty small. It's all within that same month. So the people that were affected found out within a couple weeks of the actual infection. That's a good thing. So if there is something that ATV needs to provide to the residents, then they can do that for them without the damage being too late or too catastrophic before it gets there, right? What I mean by that is, let's say I was ATV or ATV2, because we don't want to pretend to be them, and I didn't know for 3 or 4 months, which is pretty typical. In that 3 or 4 months, somebody's credit card numbers got leaked, social security numbers got leaked, and then let's say of 100,000 people, and then of those 100,000 people, 1% of them had their identity stolen because of my negligence, right? So that's 1,000 people. What if those 1,000 people 10% sue? It's 100 people that are suing us. That's going to cost us a lot of money in litigation. We could have prevented it if we would have known beforehand, and we could have put the tools in place, such as credit monitoring that I paid for as a company to the affected people. And there's things like that you can do, because it's significantly cheaper to do that than have to fail with the aftermath. That being said, there is no reasonable expectation to have, I've had my identity stolen in my 20s. I know people that have their identity stolen multiple times a year. It's almost impossible to know, as the victim, who stole the identity or why. I would love to get to a place where you can hold a company accountable that says, you know what, we got this from a Chase database leak. Okay, well, I'm going back to Chase because my information got stolen. I want my 10,000 or 50,000 or whatever dollars back, and I want you to pay for all the pain and suffering I had to go through and all that fun stuff, because legal. Anyway, stolen data includes names, email addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, and some private investors. There's no way for us to know if there's more or less. Anyways, states that 300 individuals has been affected. We are not at this time aware of any fraud or misuse of your information as a result of this incident. Of course you're not. Why would you be? If my database got leaked, how would I know if somebody on that database had their identity stolen? I wouldn't. It's impossible. So that's a blank statement. It's just something to make people feel better. States the company. We also required all employees to change their access credentials, deployed additional endpoint protection on our corporate network to help prevent this type of incident from reoccurring in the future, which means they didn't have the right tools in place to prevent it, and now they do. After your information, after your risk has been out there, right? So I just wanted to point that out, because it's another breach, it's another release, a public statement, and it's kind of, it sounds like they have the tools in place, but then the fact that they deployed additional protection to prevent this from happening makes me wonder if they really did have the best tools in place in the first place, right? So our next article is from thehackernews.com, a wide range of cyber attacks leveraging Prometheus TDS malware services. So this article is going to talk about, long story short, is that you can pay about $250 to implant malware on a business or a person, and it's becoming a big problem, right? And it does this again. So I'm going to talk about, if you can see it here, it says it comes in an email message. It'll be an HTML attachment. You might get a web shell redirect or a Google Docs page, and then Prometheus backdoor URL. So WatchGuard offers secure DNS solutions. They use DNS Watch, and if Prometheus is on the DNS Watch, it would have blocked this completely, right? There's also other categories that you can fit in there. They had a ton of categories in here. This is actually a really smart or cleverly written program. It's meant to get around all your typical block points. But again, if you have geolocation services, which your WatchGuard does automatically, you don't need to pay another vendor for another product. Your WatchGuard can do geolocation services. So if a country that does a lot of malicious activity is trying to get to yours, to your network, it's blocked. They don't need to, right? If you're primarily based in the Midwest, sure, we'd all like to be a global company and sweep in that great revenue, but it's not that simple either. Long story short, if you're a regional based company, you don't need to open up outside the United States or whatever country you're in, Canada or South America or whatever, right? So use geolocation IP services as part of your Total Security Suite license if you have one. If you need a quote to start protecting your network, the best tool that is in place for your company and how to get it configured, you can get a hold of us at c14g.com. From there, we have contact information at the bottom of every page. You can shoot us an email, give us a call, or fill out the form on the webpage, and we'd love to help you so you don't run into a scenario where you're becoming the next topic that I talk about on this weekly broadcast. So, um, anyways, multiple cyber criminal groups are leveraging a malware as a service solution to carry out a wide range of malicious software distribution campaigns that result in the deployment of payloads, such as all these different payloads, against individuals in Belgium, as well as government agencies, companies, and corporations in the US. Again, if there's money to be made from your company, they're going to do it, right? And unfortunately, once a company pays a ransom, they go on a list of known people that will pay to get their data back. And so now they become even a higher target, because if I'm company A and I paid for a ransomware a year ago, I'm an easy target, because if I get hit with it again and I still have some security hole that gets in there and I don't have the right tools in place to protect my network, I'm probably going to pay again. So I'm going to be one of the first targets. And I did get that firsthand from somebody who writes ransomware and deploys it. When I was trying to help a customer out, they flat out said, "Yeah, we'll be right back. If you don't fix the hole, or we'll be right back." And then they told me what the hole likely was. They did not make it back, long story short. Dubbed Prometheus and available for sale on underground platforms for $250 a month since August of 2020, so it's been around for a year. The service is a traffic direction system that is designed to distribute malware laced Word and Excel documents. So that's a big one, right? Most of the time, just about everyone uses Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. It's very easy to embed malware or a link to a URL inside that. You could just have an Excel document that has a URL built into it, and if somebody clicks on that cell, it could take you to a bad URL. If you aren't using secure DNS, you should be. And I know for a fact that the solutions that are provided from Cisco/OpenDNS are about 10 to 20 times more expensive than you'll pay for a WatchGuard solution. I think we were quoted $130,000 in one of the last places for OpenDNS, and it was already included in the TSS license. So just be aware that the companies that are really good at selling have a really they do a really good job of making you feel like you need their product. They don't want you to go figure out what the other products are pricing or what the other products are. That's just a little insider advice for somebody who's had to deal with the enterprise solution trying to get into the small medium business sector. More than 3,000 email addresses are said to have been singled out in a malicious malware. Let's try that again. Via malicious campaigns in which Prometheus TDS was used to send malicious emails with banking and finance, retail, energy and mining, cybersecurity, healthcare, IT, and insurance emerging the prominent verticals targeting the attacks. It's poorly written, but the long story is that it goes across many different things that they're trying to attack. That's a lot of business sectors right there. So Prometheus TDS is an underground service that distributes malicious files and redirects visitors to phishing and malicious sites. Again, you should be training your employees. Know before. We're not a know before partner yet, but we're hoping to be one soon. But Know Before is a great product that actually has training campaigns that get released to train your employees. Just out of the blue, they'll get a link that looks legitimate. It's a phishing attack, and when they click the link, if they fall for it, it'll provide training for them. That being said, you can also incentivize your employees by reporting, doing a random raffle. If a legitimate spam comes through, send it to report@company.com or spam@company.com. If it is legitimate, everyone who submits their name will get entered into a pool, and we'll select a pool to give out $500 gift card or two $500 gift cards. That way it incentivizes people to keep an eye out on the content of a message, because they're looking like everyone else what's best for them, right? So there are things you could do as a company to make life a little easier. The service is made up of the Prometheus TDS administrative panel, which an attacker configures the necessary parameters for a malicious campaign, which is download malicious files, configure restrictions on users, geolocation, browser version, and operating system. Again, you should be using geolocation services. This is used differently in this paragraph, but if you're not using geolocation services, or you don't have a product to use geolocation services, we can help you with that. C14g.com. The service is also known to employ third-party infected websites that are manually added by the campaign's operators and act as a middleman between the attacker's administration panel and the user. Yeah, so with affiliate programs out there, and I think they're going to mention that later, if I could send you to a website that gives me an automatic sign up so I can get my kickback, we more power to me, right? So if I paid $250 a month and I get $1,250 a month, I've already paid for my kickbacks right there. So to achieve this, a PHP file named Prometheus.backdoor is uploaded to the compromised website, not the machine, but actually to the website, to collect and send back data about the victim, based on which a decision is taken as to whether to send the payload to the user and or redirect them to a specified URL. Again, if you're going to a URL which is DNS name www.mycompany.com or c14g.com or anything, those are all URLs. And if you're going to a bad one, you don't have the tools in place that, if mycompany.com was safe today, what if I created mybadcompany.com? And would you be able to stop people from going there? Exactly. The attack scheme commences with an email, right? So email, you should be using spam blocking. Again, spam blocker is part of WatchGuard. We can help configure all this for you. Or you can buy a third-party service if you want. Barracuda makes a great spam filtering service. The attack scheme commences as an email containing an HTML file, a link to a web shell that redirects users to a specified URL, or a link to Google Docs that's embedded with a URL that redirects users to a malicious link. That one is either clicked or open, leads the recipient to the infected website, and then this is the part I wanted to point out, which stealthily collects basic information and then forwards this data to the admin panel. That's actually not what I wanted to point out. Sorry. This is the part I wanted to point out, and we're going to change the highlight color because I've already done this before, so we're going to change it. And the part I wanted to point out, in the final phase, the administrative panel takes responsibility for sending a command to redirect the user to a particular URL or to send a malware-ridden Word or Excel file, with the user redirected to a legitimate site like DocuSign or UPS immediately after downloading the file to mask the malicious activity, right? So as an end user, you wouldn't even know what happened. You went to some safe site. You don't remember typing there, but you're there for some reason. But in between that, you actually clicked on it, you were redirected to a bad link, downloaded malware, and now you possibly put your entire company at risk. They're possibly could be down for a week or two or a couple days, depending on their disaster recovery plan. So besides redistributing malicious files, researchers found that Prometheus is also used as a classic TDS to redirect users to specific sites, such as fake VPNs. VPNs can be blocked via the WatchGuard, by the way. Dubious portals selling Viagra and Cialis, you can block those. You can block them based on keywords. And baking and phishing sites. Sorry. Again, you can limit category blocking. Having an employer block the access to drugs like Tylenol becomes a little tricky when you do content filtering. But when you do content filtering for websites, you can put in keywords that if they're trying to sell Viagra or Cialis, you can do that on your own time. You don't need to do that here at work, right? I'm not paying you for that. So Prometheus TDS also redirected users to sites selling pharmaceutical products. Yep. Operators of such sites often have affiliate and partnership programs, which is the point I wanted to point out. Partners, in turn, often resort to aggressive spam campaigns in order to increase the earnings within the affiliate program. Analysis of the Prometheus infrastructure by Group IB specialists revealed links that redirect users to sites related to Canadian pharmaceutical company. And then it's just a cold hard end of that article, right? But the point being is that you're not just clicking on a malicious link or a URL. You're also getting somebody paid by clicking on their partner affiliate program as well. So if you don't know what affiliate programs are, it's like if I were to create a link for Acorns, which is an investment company, I get paid if 5 people sign up, I get paid $100 per person as an example, right? So that's an affiliate program. I don't do that on my business side, but that's what one is. Then I really quickly wanted to point out, let's check time to see if I'm doing better or worse than the first time I did this. And I'm doing a little bit better. I'm at a half hour right now. So again, I'm trying to figure out what this looks like for people. I want to provide cybersecurity news in an easy to understand format, things to keep you aware for, whether you're on the cybersecurity side or not. If you're just an employee looking out for email, hopefully I'm going to start showing some technical things of what you can do or what the WatchGuard solution looks like. So if you do click on a bad link, what would happen or what's done to proactively prevent that from doing damage to the company. Anyways, the thing I wanted to point out, the balance of power, and again, this article is from ZDNet, and the URLs are on the YouTube video in the description. The balance of power in the hiring process has shifted, and tech workers now hold a lot more power. That's true. Employers need to acknowledge that or lose out. Employers have a tendency to think that you do it my way or I'll just find somebody else. But that's kind of not the case anymore. That's a hard nudge. Employers are pretty bullheaded. They don't want to move at all. So this is going to be more of an opinion piece, I guess. But it is part of the industry and what's changing. So there's always been a tech skill crisis pretty much ever since the days when computers filled either entire rooms and were fed instructions on punch cards. That's right. We used to use punch cards. If you don't know what a punch card is, think about a voting machine. There was an issue about 10 years ago where a lot of votes wouldn't be read because there was no hole, or the CHAD, which is the punched hole, was hanging, so it didn't register it correctly. That's a punch card. Computers used to be just run on punch cards. Your name would be a punch card. Your date of birth would be a punch card, and it would just process all this data pretty quickly. But that was a long time ago, 40 years ago. Probably even a little bit more. Anyways, there are plenty of reasons for this, but fundamentally, we are not training enough people to fill jobs that are out there. Totally agree. Once you get into a place, very rarely have I ever seen a company willing to. They're willing to say that they're going to train me, but they're not willing to pocket out or actually send me off site to go do it. And ultimately, it's their loss in the end. Because I'm just gonna, as an employee, as a generic employee, I'm just gonna look to leave in 2 years anyways, right? So, and even if we could, even if you could train enough people, there's always going to be a mismatch between the education that students absorb in college and the skills that they need to work in the real world. I attended college. Again, I wanted to go for video game programming, but I couldn't. I ended up dropping out of college. The nice thing about IT is it's been something that's mainly, as long as you have the real world experience, you're more valuable. Just like people that are going to college now, they always, when they get out of college, they run into, well, how am I supposed to get the experience if you're not willing to give me a shot without the experience? And that's where internships come in, but there's not enough internships for the amount of college students that are out there. Anyways, IT has always kind of been on the side where as long as you have the experience, you're safe, right? You don't, a bachelor's degree isn't going to prove that you know how to write a function in C++ or a SQL statement, or you know how to look at security lines on a firewall or any of that stuff, right? So businesses rarely plan more than a few months ahead, and the skills that they need are constantly in flux anyways. For a business, that's true, making it hard to educate to keep pace. One of the companies that I just worked for, they literally replaced all their networking infrastructure with a solution that they cannot support as of now, right? So they don't have the staff to support it. The staff doesn't know how this product works, and people that are hired for this product are typically out of the salary allotment that they're allowed to pay for that type of position. So they're always constantly going to be looking to, they spent millions of dollars to upgrade their network, but the network isn't usable or isn't being able to be supported without spending another $1 million on support. So, and they're not going to do that. So you got to put the right tools in place for the long-term strategy of your company. But the problem is a lot of companies have a tendency, a lot of these vendors that sell hardware to people that don't know any better, have a tendency to put a nice sugar coat on it and make it seem like, oh yeah, you'll be fine. As long as you buy us, everything's perfect. Unfortunately, that's not always true. Usability is more important sometimes than uh, the name that's being sold. So the events in the past 18 months have made the skill shortage even worse. Developers, IT support staff, and project managers are exhausted. After first helping organizations make a rapid switch to work from home and then supporting further adjustments to the business model, around 80% of developers report being burned out, with around half blaming the workloads. Right. So employers have a tendency to stretch the workloads of everybody because one, the employers don't know what they're asking, and two, employees, especially IT employees, they're not going to say no. IT people are typically more followers than leaders. That means they just want to put their head down. They want to get from point A to point B with nothing in between, right? So that's your common IT person, right? So um, if you as an employer are expecting somebody, if you ask me, and let's just say I'm an Active Directory Windows Server guy, and you ask me to look at the Synology NAS, which I talked about earlier, I might say, well, I don't really know how to do it, but we all know you're going to say, well, can you take a look and try to figure it out? And then you're going to brush your hands clean. That leads to burnout, right? Because now you're expecting him or me in this scenario to get it figured out when I have no idea what I'm looking at. Not every computer is the same. Not every technology is the same. What I was trained on is not how you can do this. If I'm a DBA, that doesn't mean I'm a SQL administrator. That doesn't mean I know how to write SQL statements or queries. That just means I know how to manage database replications and all that fun security that goes with it. I could give you hundreds of examples of that. That's just not the point. That we don't have time for that. So the point is that employers have a tendency to ask too much of employees, and in IT, employees have a tendency to not say no because they don't want to be seen as somebody that says no, and at the same time, they just want to do their job and get done, right? So this leads to, typically in the cybersecurity realm, a hole in security. Something's not done the right way, and next thing you know, bam, someone's in. So on top of that, many organizations are now kicking off a huge digital transformation project to build on the changes that were forced to make during the pandemic. Inevitably, the pressure on IT staff will start building again because you simply can't run these projects without developers or project managers or CIOs. Boy, let me tell you, out of the 30 jobs I get every week sent to me for recruitment, uh, they they typically add developer, project manager, and sometimes CIO all into one role, and it pays the least of all three of those roles, right? So employers don't want to hire three different people. They want to hire somebody who can kind of do it, and then we'll train. They think we'll train them the rest of the way. Realistically, that doesn't happen. It's great to think that you're going to train as an employer the rest of the way, but a lot of employers don't train. The employers that do train have a tendency to keep employees a lot longer, and employers that do things that help employees have a tendency to go a big way. And one thing that I'm going to point out here is that when was the last time that you received a cost of living adjustment? Right. So if I stay with a company and let's just say I make 110,000 with a company, and next year I make that same 110,000, I actually lost money year over year because the rate of inflation is 2 to 3%. So my 110,000 is now 107,000 realistically. That's what the value is. Don't consider a COLA, cost of living adjustment, a raise, because it's not. But if you want to keep employees happy, give them a COLA and a raise every whatever your policy is, 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, whatever you want to do. COLA adjustments go a very, very long way to making an employee happy and making them feel like they're part of something. The other avenue to that is there's two ways to manage people, and this is coming from my management experience. You can manage people as numbers, right? Well, and what that usually means for middle management is, well, my boss is looking to make sure that these numbers are hit, so I want you guys to hit these numbers. That's not managing people. And the other managing method is put the employee first. And what does that mean? It means that you let the employees know that one, you can always talk to me. I won't throw you under the bus. It's always confidential. Two, I want to train you. I want to put you first. I want you to succeed. Three, if you have something going on in your life, if you have to work remotely, even though your company has a strong no remote work policy, I'll go to bat for you. Four, do these little things to show that the employee is more important than the number. And generally speaking, employees will always give you significantly. It's like a 25% increase. It's probably even higher. I can't remember the exact number, 30 something. increase in productivity than if you just told them the numbers you're trying to hit, right? So putting employees first, especially for middle management, instead of putting numbers first, is a good way to keep employees happy, feel like you got their back. But you actually do have to get their back. You have to say no to your boss or rock the boat a little bit for your employee to make sure that they're happy. That'll make them want to stay, because employees right now, if you don't do that for me as a typical employee, every 2 years I'm going to leave because I'll get a raise in the process, a pretty significant raise. Usually every time I've left a company after 2 years, I've got a $20,000 raise. So, and the skill is the skill. So that's becoming more and more common knowledge to IT people. So again, how do you prevent that? This is all based on opinion. You put the employee first and you let them know. Excuse me. You let them know that they're first. On top of that, employers are, plus you don't train anymore. Employers don't train anymore. On top of that, employers are unveiling their plans for return to the office, even though a significant number of staff remain reluctant to resume their commutes. Exhausted developers, thoughtless employers, and a major tech skills shortage. I don't know why there's a question mark there, but yeah, as for me, I went back to the office the first day back in the office from going remote before I started this company. My car broke, cost me $2,000 to fix. That was kind of like why am I putting up with this? And then my productivity went down, significantly down, because I work much better from home. I can eat when I want. I can go to the bathroom. I could do all the, I could relax and still get my job done. I'll work late for you because that's, as long as I'm getting my job done, and that's how I've always had, I always tell employees, as long as you get the job done on time, I don't care where you work or how you work, just get it done, right? So that being said, that was the nail in the coffin for me. When my productivity went down because chit chatting in the office, and I'm not focused on doing my job, right? Instead, I'm sidetracked by what's out the window, or what's the rumor going around, or what's on the lunchroom, or whatever. No, and I said, I'm just going to finish this sentence here. No wonder many are talking about the great resignation as workers gear up to quit. Half of the tech sector are considering leaving their jobs. I am one of those half for that reason, by the way. Many employers are very bad at hiring and retaining the right people and offering the training and development opportunities that they say developers, but we could really just say IT staff want. Yeah. So if I'm a developer, and again, I started as a developer, I have it in my blood. If I do programming in C++, that doesn't mean I know anything about Python. It doesn't mean I know how to do assembler. It doesn't mean I know how to do Fortran. It just means I know how to do C++, right? So if you give me the opportunities for whatever program you want me to learn, terrific. Otherwise, I'm not going to pay out of my pocket to do it. I'm not going to do it on my time outside of work. So you're going to be stuck with the C++ programmer doing the bare minimum as an employee. So, and when employers fail to provide that structure, you can hardly blame the tech staff for moving on rapidly to the new jobs. 3/4 of tech security professionals say that they are approached by recruiters every month. Again, I get 30 a month. Or 30 a day. That's not a joke. The end result is significant realignment going on in the tech skills market. For far too long, employers have failed to create the right conditions for success. I touched on a few of those ideas and what you can do. Employers haven't fully understood the skills they require, have had unrealistic expectations about employees' levels of experience. Again, you're asking somebody to do this who doesn't know how to do it. They're not going to say no, or have not paid enough cash. That's true too. IT people are expensive. IT environments are expensive. But if you rely on IT to make money, how are you going to make money if your IT goes away, right? And you're not the exception, unfortunately. I know plenty of companies think that, I'll be fine. I'll be fine for 3 months until this goes wrong, or then that goes wrong, and now I'm paying somebody way too much money, and I'm spending way too much time getting back up and operating because the people that knew the system all left. So now I have to try to figure out how the system works. I got to pay someone to try to figure it out. They might get something wrong. It's lost productivity all around. They've also paid insufficient attention to career development and training. Absolutely, positively. This is a great way to keep employee retention. Right now, tech workers are in high demand and have a strong negotiating position, not just in terms of salary, but also in terms of flexible and remote working requirements. I don't need to go into an office to do anything for my company. I can deploy a firewall. I can deploy all the security features of the firewall. I can deploy all the things I talked about, DNS watch. Everything can be done remotely. I just need somebody to hook it up to an internet connection with a power connection, and voila, everything's done from there. It's all automated, right? So that's why things are changing drastically. If you ask me to go into an office, I'm not going to see a benefit to that as an employee. Some just need to get out of the house, and there's nothing wrong with that. My recommendation is, if you're an employer watching this, you recommend a hybrid model. I would start with 2 days in the office, 3 days at home. If you have a requirement, or you can just make it so you want to see people more often, or there's a meeting day, make it 1 day a week, whatever that case may be. The things are changing. It's not going to go back to the way it was pre-COVID. It's never going to. People are going to try to push really hard, but IT people are pretty stubborn people. Workers are starting to see that they have a little bit of power over employers, and that's what this article is touching on, right? Listening to what developers and I'm going to say and other tech workers want might be a big step towards solving the skills crisis by creating a better working environment and more attractive career path. The rules of tech recruiting are changing, and employees who are willing to change will reap the benefits. That is so true. One thing I'll point out, right? So for we'll just say $120,000 job here in Florida, that same job in New Jersey, New York area is a $70,000 job. The cost of living in New York is almost twice, if not 3 times higher than it is here. That's totally backwards, right? But if you allow remote work, you're in a place where there's not a big metropolitan area. Let's say that you're in Cedarburg, Wisconsin, right? And you need to hire a really good skilled tech person. They're not staying in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. They've either moved to Chicago or they've gone somewhere else, right? Remote workers can bring the skilled workers in, allow them to do their job on time, and do it the right way. You don't need to be sitting at a desk to do it. Unfortunately, a lot of employers like to pry, and they like to know much more info than they need. So that's going to be it for me this week. I should be around 45 minutes, 47:15 as it reads right now. I wanted to say, please leave your comments if you have any suggestions. You can also reach us at c14g.com. Our phone number's in there, our email, and our ability to write comment to reach us directly is on the bottom of every page. Thank you, everybody. And if you have any recommendations, please let us know.